Good morning, everybody. And I would like to thank Dr. Venkatesh sir, Dr. Annamalai, and whole research team who has made this research methodology one-day workshop. So I will be speaking on formulating research question and hypothesis. And before this, I would just like to introduce that what is the importance of research and publish. It not only makes your career better, professionally you are more developed, but at your individual level and institutional level also, it uh, gives you a lot of importance, and in development of at your level and institutional level also, your research helps. And in a recent publication by a Harvard study, they said, train your brain. Me and Annamalai, even at this age, like I'm elder than Annamalai, but even at this age, we went to US and we learned coding, statistics, machine learning, so many things. So if we can learn at this age, so definitely at your age, you can do literally wonders. So this study says that the old dogma that you cannot teach old dog new things, I don't think so. It is practically useful right now. This study said that human brain still has plasticity, and as you grow, even you can learn and so many things by doing new and challenging activity. So therefore, you have to train your brain regularly, and that's why always keep on publishing at whatever stage of life you are. You should keep on publishing. When I was in US in 2016, I observed Dr. David Guyton. At that time, he was 73, and in his room, there were piles of papers. So I was like that at this age also, he was publishing so many things, doing so many studies. So we should aim to be like it. Just keep on doing research and train your brain. Dr. Claude Bernard, he was a famous French experimentalist, and he has written so many things about hypothesis, about research question, about result. And this is one very interesting quote I found in his book, that he who does not know what he is looking for will not lay hold of what he has found when he gets it. So if you're not doing your thesis properly and without any interest, even your research question will not be so good. And at last, what you will find, you will never appreciate it, and you will never contribute to the scientific world if you're not publishing it. And even mistaken hypotheses and theories are of use in leading to discovery. And this remark is true in all the sciences. We see so many examples that all the mistaken hypotheses, they have become landmark studies. So why to formulate or frame a research question? Because if your research question is very good, it can be transformed into a feasible, valid study plan. And this forms the basis of your study plan. So this is the anatomy of study design, which starts with first thing being a formulating research question. What question your study is going to address? In background and significance, why these questions are important. And for this, you have to do a thorough literature search. About the study design, all these topics will be dealt with Dr. Annamalai in his lecture. And then subject, who are the subjects, how they will be selected. So many times we see in thesis, they will take the cases, but in between, just after study, doing their thesis, they will realize that they have not taken the control subject. So this is very important, that how you select the subject. Then variables, what measurement will be made? What is your predictor variable? What are the predictor variables? What is the outcome variables? And what are the confounding variable? It is very important to find all this variable before starting your study. And then last is the statistical issues, that how large is the study and how it will be analyzed. Like what is your sample size, how you are doing to how you are calculating your sample size, how you are analyzing the descriptive data, and at last, how you are proving your hypothesis. So I think when you start your paper, when you get the topic, even that point of time also, you can start writing about your paper. Because once your research question is good, and once you have done enough literature search, you can definitely write the introduction part, a rough part of what your study aim, what are the inclusion and exclusion criteria, what the study will see, what will be the results. Like you can just anticipate that this could be the result, and then Conclusion, you can write it as what hypothesis from study you can make. So this, me and Annamalai, we attended this wonderful session, 1 week session on successful scientific writing. And as today we are organizing this program, so by conducting these program and attending these program, usually the aim is the number of research article being submitted to various conferences and to various journal, it is usually increased. So this is the link which you can go through, that what is about successful scientific writing and publishing. The professor who taught us 1 week course was from CDC, and really me and Annamalai, we had a wonderful week, and it was like inspiring with each and every word he inspired to create interest and how to write a scientific paper. So the research cycle, as you know, the research process starts from developing a scientific question. You should have a proper study design. Then you collect data, analyze the data, and at last make conclusion about scientific question. So formulating a research question is very crucial step in directing any scientific study, and a clear and thoughtful, constructed research question determines the success of a research. And it is always not necessary that research interest is equal to your research question. And be aware, if your research question is not good, if you are making wrong assumption, if your data collection is not good, if you are feeding misinformation, and if your methodology is not correct, so whatever garbage if you are putting in, you will always get a misleading report. So this garbage in and garbage out proofs like correct in each and everything, whether it is thesis, whether it is data collection. That's why you should focus for a good research formulation and a good data collection methodology. So as right now we discussed that today we are in era of evidence-based medicine. For everything we should have evidence-based medicine, evidence-based practice, and then definitely we can have a evidence-based research. So if you see this is the famous pyramid of level of evidence. And if you see at the top is systematic review and meta-analysis. Why they are at top? Because there is a very stronger methodology associated with it, less bias and more control of comparisons. And down, then third comes critically appraised sources, RCTs, cohort studies, which can be prospective or retrospective, case control studies, and case report and case series, they come at last. And with a study, it is reported the more is the evidence, more effort, as Sir said, more is the evidence, more effort you have to do to prove that evidence. So many studies have revealed that whenever you do meta-analysis and systematic review, it takes almost 6 months to formulate your question and to publish your criteria, whatever it is, and to complete the whole study, it usually takes 1 to 2 years. So when you give each and every single day to research, then in 2 years, you can formulate this meta-analysis and systematic review. And therefore, they are at top of the level of evidence. So generating a testable working hypothesis is first step towards conducting a original research. With case report and case series, we can generate a hypothesis, but we cannot test this hypothesis. And therefore, they are always at a lower level of evidence. And then observational studies, interventional studies, narrative and systematic review, they not only generate the hypothesis, but also test the hypothesis. Now, your research question can be quantitative, how much, and qualitative, how it is. So this is a simple example. This was a study for association of tessellation density with progression of axil length and refraction in children, artificial intelligence, a 4-year prospective study. So this table is just to tell you that before starting your study, have formulate all the parameters and analyze about all the parameters, whether you will be able to get all these parameters. If you are talking about fundus features like tessellation density, how you are going to see this tessellation density. papillary atrophy. Obviously, in this case, all the images and artificial intelligence were used, but the basic baseline characteristic of every table, we get this descriptive stats, and you should be familiar with all the variables. That is where the importance of knowing what is your independent variable, what is dependent variable, and what is your predictor variable, and what is outcome variable, you should be familiar of. And then about the qualitative study, we usually see the questionnaire studies. I have published couple of questionnaire studies in IGEO, but after going to Michigan, I don't want to look over those papers because I don't think that the design was good. So for questionnaire studies, really it is very tough task. You have to validate your question, and it is a long process of formulating the questionnaire, then translating, then validating it, then testing it, reliability and validity. And there are so many software to do this, which we are not going into details. But questionnaire study, I think it is the toughest studies. It looks simple, but those qualitative studies are really very good. And then there are surveys online and offline, and focus group studies. In focus group studies, you just take a group of people and then you ask question, and then later on formulate into a research paper. So this study was a simple study published long back, but right now we don't see so much focus group, maybe because the world is entirely different. People are not having so much time, or people don't focus on this. Whatever focus group study, we'll see more from the back, the landmark studies. So this focus group studies study took into account of average size of 4 to 10 people in 6 group, and they just asked about simple question about honesty, information about diagnosis and prognosis, explanation in clear language, ophthalmological experience and reputation, empathy. This was just done in a eye care setting. And second one, this was a very landmark study, Karyapati Pediatric Eye Evaluation Project, in which 24 focus group were made of parents and grandparents. And during those days, it was published in 2004, and study was done in around 2002 to 2003. And they have taken population, just a village population. With village population, what was their perception of eye diseases and eye care needs of children? Till now, at this age, like, it is very difficult whenever we think about this type of focus studies. What are the tips of developing research question and hypothesis for research study? Once you have a broad research question, then perform a systematic literature review to increase knowledge and familiarity with your subject and topic. And then sometimes there are so many things will be going. If your topic is really very new, then sometime you will not get the PubMed indexed publication or in other database. Then you have to learn about current trends and technological advances, and which are published in Ophthalmology Times or other type of web or podcast. Then seek careful input from expert mentors, colleagues, and collaborators. It is very important to have a good mentor. Once you have a good mentor, he will be a godfather, and definitely it makes you a research to lead to a different path, and then a publication also, which journal to select and how to show your thesis to world. It totally depends upon your mentor. Then is the use of the finer criteria in the development of research question. We will see what is this finer criteria, and ensure that research question follows the PICOT format. Develop a research hypothesis from research question. And last is ensure the research question and objectives are answerable, feasible, and clinically relevant. So these are the 6 important things. 5W. Who are you looking for information? What age group you are looking, whether it is a population-based study, whether it is a hospital-based cohort. What exactly want do you know? What is your goal? And then why? Why are you interested in this topic? Whether this is a new topic or you want to already do something new in already research topic, and where this thing is done. Even in India, we are having different localities, like geographical distribution. If you study, so many diseases and so many patterns vary within the country, within the state. And what time period you are interested in, and how does this relate to other research in the field, and how does this topic impact or interact with other topics in the field. So long back when I was junior MO, this was my first publication about retinal nerve fiber layer thickness in normal normal Indian pediatric population measured with the OCT. This was done with Stratus OCT. At the time when I started doing this, there were only 8 publications on this. And if we see the article, that time I was so junior, so I was not having any like guide. I was doing whatever, like we were not having any thesis candidate. So if you see the topic, with topic only, you will come to know what we have talked about, 6 or 7 things, 6 Ws and 1 H. In which population we are going to study? It is pediatric. Who? What we are going to study? It is RNFL thickness. Why we are going to study? Because in that time, right now we are having so many studies, but that time the pediatric OCT RNFL parameters were not so much studied. So that was the lacunae where it was done in India. So I sent this paper to so many journals, even to our own pediatric Journal of Pediatric and Strabismus, American Journal of Pediatric and Strabismus, but they said it is very good study, but better you publish it in your own region. And this study was done in 2012. How it impacted? Once I did this study, I got in my ResearchGate like so many calls from various researchers, how you have done study, what were the parameters, how was the quadrant analysis and all this. And this paper made the maximum citation, like till now it is almost 35 citations of this paper. So the impact of how is very extensive. It not only relates your topic to the other topic, but it makes you you can say that it makes you a person who is more focused in this research area and the person who knows more about this. And though I'm only pediatric ophthalmologist, but because of this paper, I became reviewer in Journal of Glaucoma. So every year I review 1 or 2 paper about the OCT, normal OCT calculations and RNFL thickness in different other population. And after this paper, that I did with Stratus OCT. So with time, we shifted to Cirrus OCT. So again, the parameters were different. So I did this study on interocular asymmetry of retinal fiber by Cirrus OCT, normal pediatric population. And I'm very thankful to Dr. Venkatesh sir, because that time I was so junior, I was not having, even right now also I am not having AO membership, but sir gave his number and I was able to present this as a poster in AO 2016 in Chicago. Again, this paper got so many citations, and I review so many papers on interocular asymmetry also. Then comes the main thing, study protocol. So once you have a research problem, you have to do a thorough literature search, keep on discussing with your team, write the problem statement, write the aim and objective, and write the null and alternate hypothesis. So you can have just a rough format with your question. Just what is your problem statement, and you can leave this. What is the effect of, suppose if you are doing, what is the effect of this glaucoma drug on the progression, and what is the effect of all the variable, what is the relationship between variables, whether they are having any significant effect, whether there is a significant correlation between 2 variables, what is the best predictor of this model. So this type of research question you can formulate. And before starting your study, even you can design like what graphs you want to include in your study, and you have to create a good meticulous information plan, what information you are going to see. So as I mentioned about successful scientific writing, so that professor shared so many good links with us, and this is a very good link which tells about how to conduct a literature search. This is a definite site, and it gives you, it just takes 1 or 2 hours to read about how to do a scientific communication in conducting a literature search. And in one page, I like this quote very good, that you should read everything. You have to do a thorough research, but you should not write about everything in your paper. So our librarian Kumar Gurupari, she will discuss in detail about the literature search. And it is very important to understand how to do a good literature search, because once you do a good literature search, then only you can come to know what are the evidence-based research paper in the good indexes. And ideally for your search, you should have more than like 2 or 3. You should not be just confined to only PubMed, Embase, Ovid. There are so many in which always try to search in 2 or 3 databases. Scopus is very good database, but it is not available to all institutions. We were in University of Michigan, so we are still having access. So if anybody want, we can search them for Scopus also. And this is a concept map. You should always have a main research question and then subtopics for this. And keep on revising about your question. Keep on exploring. And if your research question, you have to see whether it is focused, it should not be very complex. And every time keep on asking, so what of your topic? How and why? Keep on redefining your question. So once you have formulated a broad question, then you should look for a finer criteria. That study should be feasible. It should have adequate number of subject, adequate technical expertise, affordable in time and money, manageable in scope, and fundable. And it should be interesting. You should get some new ideas about it. And it should be interesting. Then novel and ethical and relevant. Like likely study should be like that. It should have a significant impact on scientific knowledge and clinical practice. So in 2020, my second thesis candidate, I gave her original research question about refractive and biometric outcomes in children treated with ROP with the intravitreal injection of bevacizumab. So if we see for the finer criteria, though the topic was very interesting, it was novel, it was ethical, it was relevant also, but when we start doing pilot study, we found that biometry was not possible because most of the patient we have given injection in the year of 2019, and before it there were very few patient, and most of the injections were given with a project, and so most of the patients were of poor socioeconomic status. So doing any biometry study in them, it was not feasible because we have to again give them anesthesia and cost of anesthesia, and just to do biometry, like it was not feasible. So we changed our research question and we put it as simply a refractive profile of children treated with IVB for retinopathy of prematurity. So this thesis last year, I got for best of IGO, like because of candidate, she was not able to go, and even I was also in US, and she reached the top 10 best thesis last year, but as she was pregnant, she was not able to present her thesis. So what are the common frameworks for formulating a research question? A PICO approach is usually helpful in most of the studies, and it leads to rapid synthesis of clinical question, mainly the therapeutic, prognostic, diagnostic, and etiologic evidence. So we see how every study, how it considered PICO in their methodology. So PICO is also reported as PICOT when we take a time frame, and PICOS when there is a study design. But the common term we always see as PICO. PICO means P is for patient population of problem. I is for intervention. What is the main intervention? C is for comparison or control. And O is the outcome. What outcomes are achieved or what will be assessed, measured, or improved. So for example, this was a study done on adjunctive steroid therapy versus antibiotic alone for acute endophthalmitis after intraocular procedure. So what is the population? So with this only, with topic only, we will come to know that eyes with acute endophthalmitis following an intraocular procedure are the population. What intervention we are going to do? It is steroid plus antibiotics. Then what comparison group? It is antibiotic alone. And what were the outcome? Whether there was complete resolution of endophthalmitis at 3 months follow-up, and they have taken various parameters. Now, second is, it is a retrospective study, but then also we can see the PICO framework, how it is designed. It is study published on transition from an in-person to a telemedicine diabetic retinopathy screening program. So population is diabetic population. Intervention is we are using a telemedicine approach for to see diabetic retinopathy. Comparison in-person versus telemedicine. And outcome is telemedicine approach significantly reduce the waiting time. And whenever we include a time frame, it becomes a PICOT. And as I said, if what is the study type, then it becomes PICOS. So you can always have a PICO worksheet along with your research question. Just that's what I was mentioning long back. So many of our PGs, they will forget to take a control group. So this helps them to decide with what group they are comparing. And then along with this PICO, identify the type of question, whether you are going it for a diagnosis, for etiology, you are going to see for cost effectiveness, you are going to see for quality of life, or you are just going for a descriptive clinical finding. And always have a search strategy. Whatever search words you have used, keywords, always have a copy of that and at the date, because literature keeps on adding. Today, what I am searching, maybe tomorrow another additional 4 articles will be added, which will be very useful for your thesis. So keep on writing the search strategy along with the date when you have searched, and then publication type, what you want to have and how you are going to collect your data. So this PICO framework is always not applicable. Sometime it is like PEO, it is population exposure and outcome. And when we are doing scoping review, it comes to PCC, problem, population, concept, and context. So this is one study in which the objective of study was to map what are the evidence for assessment approaches in optometry education programs globally. So if we see the research question, what were the study used the PCC protocol, and what is the population? They are the optometry student. What is the concept? They want to see the technological literacy and training globally. And what is the context? They are seeing in optometry school, they are measuring and maintaining what is their how these program uh, they can do assessment globally. So these are various framework. There are endless number of framework depending upon your studies. PICO and PEO and PCC are the most commonly used. And if you're doing some mixed study, then SPIDER is used. If you're doing some intervention, then SPICE can be done to evaluate for some service, project, or intervention. So once you have done a good research question formulation, then you have to put a hypothesis. And hypothesis is what is the researcher predicting. And these statements define the research problem or indicate the direction of the researcher's prediction. So you have to formulate the research question and hypothesis. And your hypothesis can give you a single outcome or multiple outcomes. So your hypothesis can give you about null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Maybe statistician will tell you on detail how to do all this analysis. And your hypothesis should be testable. It should reflect all the variable of interest, correlation between all the variables, association, what is the relationship between variable, and it should be formulated early in the planning stage. And then you have to do formulate a null hypothesis, whether difference exists, whether the difference exists between the techniques or variable, or no difference exists. That is the alternate hypothesis. And hypothesis can be one-sided or two-sided hypothesis. So solid research hypothesis informed by good research question influences the research design and paves the way for defining clear research objectives. So again, this is a PICO statement of research problem, a cross-sectional study to compare the sleep hours among the high-level added sugar intake female university student as compared to low-level added sugar intake level. So PICO statement is there any association between added sugar intake and sleep quality level among female university student? And if added time, it was done at a time, so it is a cross-sectional study. So PICOT statement tells about you time also. So for PICOT, if you see this hypothesis, this was the study done. The purpose was to conduct a cross-sectional study to test the hypothesis that structural contribution to myopia in preterm and full-term born children, whether they are different or not. So what is the population? Population are both preterm and full-term children. Exposure is prematurity. You are comparing between preterm and full-term children. And what are the outcomes? It is just a descriptive study. You are going to see what is the difference between axial length and lens thickness in these two groups, and time frame. It is a cross-sectional study. So with this study, in that time, it was a very good study because it has given a hypothesis and proved that in ROP babies, the axial length, even though they are having myopia, the axial length doesn't increase. It is the increased lens thickness and increased in corneal curvature, which gives to the myopia. So myopia is mainly a curvatural myopia, and myopia because of lens thickness, it is a non-axial myopia. So as I already mentioned, for the hypothesis, you have to always see what is the null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. So a simple study of prevalence of diabetic retinopathy in type 2 diabetic patient in a population from Denmark. What is the objective? They want to see the prevalence of diabetic retinopathy in type 2 diabetes mellitus. So null hypothesis could be either the prevalence of diabetic retinopathy is 50% or alternate hypothesis is prevalence of diabetic retinopathy is not 50%. So this is two-sided. And in one-sided, your hypothesis will be diabetic retinopathy is less than 50% or more than 50%. So this study found that prevalence of diabetic retinopathy was 31.5%, that is less than 50%. Again, there are some criteria for observational studies, for the interventional studies. And once you formulate your research question, keep on going through this trope statement, which is the checklist. And when you are seeing this checklist, then only you will come to know how you are going to design your study and at last what statistical method you can apply. And right now we are having extensive data source. You can take from EMR, imaging, surgical data. And in ophthalmology, this is a very confusing question, which eye to take, whether to take right eye, whether to take left eye, whether you have to take both eyes. So maybe statistician will deal with this, all this analysis. And whenever we are going for analysis, the descriptive analysis we do to see the basic mean, median, mode, percentage, and frequency. And to test our hypothesis, we have to do an inferential analysis to see the confidence interval and whether our sample of population, whether with that sample we can make appropriate conclusion regarding the population features. So hypothesis testing, again, it will be dealt in the statistical class. So this is the hourglass notion of research. Start from a broad question, narrow down, focus and observe, analyze data, reach conclusion, and generalize back to question. So now we are in era of AI, and there are multiple tools. I think there are like more than 100, not 100, even more than 100 tools, different tools in which you can put just your research question and it can give you so many good things. But before using any AI tool, you should always have a basic and deep understanding of your research question. Don't put anything blindly because they are AI, they can give you anything. Even one time I just put for artificial intelligence in myopia, I asked for some references and it nicely gave me 5 references. Those references were actually not existing at all. So you have to be very careful with what you are putting in AI and what you are getting it. And Skyspace is, I think it is with so many like it is, I found it to be very useful tool. With the paid version, at a time with 5 or 6 PDF, you can upload your PDF and it will give you abstract, conclusion, whatever you want. If you want abstract, if you want what are the inclusion criteria in all this 5 study, it will give you. But again, be aware of, always cross check whether the information given by these are correct or not. And just like this, there are endless number of data things which you can do, but better to start your research with your manual thing. Later on you can shift to, because right now just 2 months back I attended one workshop for the editors, European editors, and I came to know there are so many tools which can detect the AI plagiarism. So be aware of all this. And beyond your research topic, I will focus that once you are free, you should always go for the case report. Though case report you are not testable, you cannot give a testable hypothesis you can generate, but so many times you can give world new things. So long back, I published this paper on OCT documented optic atrophy in non-syndromic craniostosis and lacular skull. The editor was so happy that he published it in cover page, but there was a long story behind this publication. When we first submitted this paper, the surgery was not done. Nobody was ready to do surgery for this craniosynostosis because patient was totally asymptomatic. Vision was 6/6. Only OCT RNFL thinning was there. In both eye, it was 35 microns only. So when I submitted, editor and other reviewers gave me so many points, and all those points I forwarded to the head of Department of Neurosurgery in Trivandrum in Sri Chitra Institute. And then they later worked on and they did surgery. Like it is very, though they were copper beaten appearance of skull, but they were not sure whether they should operate this patient or not with 6/6 vision. And this paper made us made a hypothesis that for all the children with craniosynostosis, right now we are doing OCT for each and everything, and we see so many referrals, and sometimes even they send 1 or 2 year old child also for OCT, which practically we are not having handheld OCT, we are having only tabletop. So sometimes it becomes difficult. So we try to give like just fundus photograph. And second article again in the same year, I published about optic nerve aplasia, unilateral optic nerve aplasia. We see lots of aplasia, but we don't report. I just report it with OCT finding. And just last month in January, like I got, usually ResearchGate will keep on sending you congratulations about your stats and everything. So this was cited in Yanoff ocular pathology paper. I don't know, but in our time, in our MS, we used to, like, Yanoff was the main book, not main book. After Kansky, we used to buy Yanoff. Though it is a very detailed book, but everybody used to have, even though whether we will study or not, but it was a trend that all of us, we used to buy, and it was really expensive that time. So showing this thing is just to tell you people that whenever you see these two case report I have given to PGs and fellows, when they didn't publish, then later I published this thing. And when you keep on doing publication, this was just a simple letter to editor, which I wrote about COVID-19 myopia, how it is increasing the high transition from simple myopia to high myopia era. And because of this paper, when I was in US, one scientist from Boston, he contacted me, he took my interview, and I told Annamalai, I'm giving one interview for iJournal. By that time, I was not knowing that this person is a scientific researcher who mainly publishes for Nature, and almost every 2 or 3 months he publishes. So it was very happy to see like Arvind Eye Hospital, Tirunelveli, and my name in his research article, and really I learned so many things from him also. And another importance of, again, case reports, I reported acute abducens nerve palsy after COVID vaccination. This was again the first paper from India, but almost each and every paper right now cites about this. Wherever in world they are telling about the COVID vaccination effect, each and every paper. So that is the impact of, even though there is no testable hypothesis, we are not able to generate hypothesis, but these things impacts a lot. And then this is just a research paper checklist, which we got from University of Michigan. It keeps on reminding you what things you have to get. So learning outcome is understand the process of formulating a research question, choose the research question in terms of PICOT and PICOT framework, always develop a hypothesis, understand the FINA criteria, understand the STROBE checklist for observational studies, CONSORT checklist for interventional studies, and keep on publishing, train the brain regularly. So I would again like to thank Dr. Venkatesh sir and research team for having me here. Thank you.